Happy Friday, another good Friday from us at the Osceola to you, to your family. If you're traveling up to Tallahassee for Spring Showcase weekend, we hope you have a great weekend. We've got a full fan guide on the Osceola, things to do Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. We've got Spring Showcase preview. Don't call it a game. It's a Spring Showcase. We've got a preview coming for you on the Osceola.com too. Happy Friday. And you know what, guys? Happy 4/14 for all FSU fans who celebrate 4th and 14. Good memories, Jordan Travis. Saw a little bit of shade on Twitter. I know, Curt, you retweeted that. Good that we're still celebrating these kind of memories and moments. And, of course, Miami, they're playing their spring game tonight on 4/14 in honor. It just gets better and better, right?
My gosh. Got to think about these things.
We don't even need joke writers this year. We can just lean on the best that Twitter provides for us.
Well, and aren't they doing it at Miami's, Inter Miami, the soccer stadium?
Is that an on-campus stadium, Curt?
No, that doesn't exist.
Okay. EJ Manuel will be there at the Miami off-campus spring game. He will be in Tallahassee for the on-campus Florida State spring game. Again, 4 o'clock spring game. We're not calling it a game. It's not a game. It's a showcase. Spring Showcase with EJ Manuel on the call. That'll be fun.
It feels like it's going to be a little more of a game this year, though. I mean, as the roster's gotten deeper, I know there are going to be 4 quarters. It's not going to be like, I think, was it last year or 2 years ago, where like the whole second half was that like guest coaches thing. I think the guest coaches thing is going to be a little smaller. And you're going to see, I think, extended time with, especially, I mean, we'll see how much Jordan Travis we'll see how much Trey Benson we'll see how much Johnny Wilson we see, and Jared Verse, Fabian Lovett. But I mean, it's going to be a nice showcase of how much deeper the roster is. The fall off won't be nearly as severe.
So our storylines from the spring have been competition, depth. We've seen it throughout from start to finish. And yeah, we're going to get to see it. There are going to be 4 true quarters. You know, we're told first quarter, 10 minutes, second quarter, 10 minutes. Third and fourth quarters, 8 minutes about a piece. In between, we'll see some special teams. You'll see some more scrimmage-like, practice-like moments and less game-like moments outside of those 2 10-minute quarters and 2 8-minute quarters. But you're going to see a lot of 11 on 11. In the end, I think there was a lot of consternation about this. This isn't going to look like maybe something that some fans would want to drive up to see. I would argue, now that I know you've got, 20 plus 16, 36 solid minutes of 11 on 11. That's not a running clock. I mean, that's a decent amount of good competitive football. So maybe I think let's transition into what we want to see. Curt, one player, one position. What are you watching in the spring showcase?
I'll take the obvious one. I mean, beyond Jordan Travis, it's nice to have the known commodity, but I'm excited to see, what we see from those other quarterbacks. I think we've liked what we've seen from Brock Glenn this spring in practice. Those who've been out there, how does that translate to a game? I think we've seen improvement from AJ Duffy after redshirting last year. How does that translate? And Tate Rodemaker, it could be good for Tate to have a spring game to remember, and not in the bad way. I mean, we all remember the meme from I think it was 2 years ago or 1 year ago, of Norvell staring down Tate, like giving him the death eyes after I think he threw an interception or something. And we've seen, more promise from Tate. I think, yesterday may have been his best practice of spring. A few really nice deep balls by Tate yesterday, as he tries to hold on to the number 2 spot. And it feels like you weigh a spring game maybe, or a spring showcase, a little more heavily in that conversation of who should be the backup entering the preseason. And we've seen Tate and AJ really sharing reps there, kind of alternating. So who looks better on that stage between those two, and how does Brock look in his first time showing off for the fan base in the Garnet and Gold?
Yeah, Curt and I were really impressed with Tate Rodemaker. I thought he made some really, really nice deep throws. Had a great drive in 11 on 11 inside late in the practice. We saw Kentron Poitier stand out. Kyle Morlock made a contested catch there. So yeah, all of our observations from Curt and I in the Osceola, you can check them out on the site. Charles, I know you've got some thoughts too about how this team has looked this spring. You've been talking to some various sources in the program too. One player, one position that you're watching.
Yeah, I think Jaheim Bell and Morlock are the 2 guys that I'm looking at. I think that they will create mismatches and open up the offense more. We've discussed it before. Mike Norvell really likes to use his tight ends in his offense, and he hasn't really had an opportunity the first couple years because they've recruited a lot of numbers. It's just the production and the play of the tight ends outside of blocking in the run game. They haven't done a whole lot. I'm excited to see what Jaheim can provide and see if the kid from the Division II level, the Morlock kid, can make that step up. I still think there's going to be moments where he may flash, but there's going to be other moments where there is going to be a struggle because you have to adjust to this level of football. It's a different level going from where he was at to the ACC. I know a lot of people don't think maybe the ACC is that good. It's still a Power 5 conference with a lot of good football. So that's the one position I'm excited to see in the spring game and what these guys can do.
I'll say this for Kyle Morlock. I think he's exceeded my expectations this spring. We'll see how it translates to the spring game. I almost don't want to overhype him, but from all we've seen this spring, I think he's handled that jump a little better than a lot of people thought he would. Bob, you can talk about the play he had yesterday to close out practice, and the whole offense swarmed him.
He runs like a receiver, but he has the body of a tight end. He has the athleticism. You can tell he kind of grew up being a receiver, a little bit of a basketball guy too in high school. And the folks at Shorter College can't say enough good things about Kyle Morlock. That was a fun story to kind of learn a little bit about how they first envisioned what Kyle Morlock could become. And I think in part that's what Florida State's doing. They're looking at high school receiver types, and maybe those guys who have the frame that can add some weight, some strength, and they can develop them as blockers. But they're hoping to find guys who are mismatches. And Chris Thompson talked a little bit about the versatility, what you can do with different personnel groupings at tight end when he spoke Thursday night at practice. Again, if you want to check out that video, go to our YouTube channel or the Osceola. You can see all of those offensive position coach videos, some good stuff from Coach Thompson just on Jaheim Bell and Kyle Morlock. I think we're a little bit spoiled. Curt and I have seen, I think, every practice so far. The guys that you have not seen yet as a fan, I'm thinking about defensive tackles like Daryl Jackson, like Io Tafasi. You've truly never seen Tafasi play in a college game. That guy is going to be a treat to watch because of that quick first step, that strength that he has. That is a big man, very strong man. I think he has at times surprised some of the veteran Florida State offensive linemen just with what he could offer in terms of a punch and how he uses leverage in his hands. And then with Daryl Jackson, you might have seen him at Maryland or at Miami, but now what he's been able to do, I think he's been consistently very, very good. At one point, I think it was Tuesday after practice, Pat kind of walked by and said Daryl Jackson was pretty dominant there in the one-on-ones. And so been a good, I think, spring for those Gadsden County boys, Daryl Jackson, Josh Farmer. Lots of good defensive linemen. I think without question, this is the best defensive front in the conference. And that's what potentially will win you an ACC title and have you very competitive every time you go out on the field. So guys, again, 4 p.m., ACC Network Extra, not the traditional ACC network. You've got to have the ability to stream that channel, but check it out. Make sure in advance that you can watch the Seminoles, 4 o'clock. It's the spring showcase. And if you can't, for whatever reason, check us out. We'll be on the Osceola. We'll have a live thread. Curt, myself, Aria, Nick will have live updates throughout the day, what we see. We'll be able to talk a little bit about injuries, I think, pregame too, just because fans will be able to see it and they'll be able to talk about it on social media or text their friends. We will, I think, for the first time, be able to maybe talk a little bit about some of those guys who have not been in our practice reports, who have not been talked all that much about by the coaches. And, obviously there are some players out like a Rob Scott, a Micah Pittman, but great to see a Micah Pittman back at practice. He kind of wandered in on Tuesday and he got to watch the last couple of practices. So good to see that, hey, he doesn't have a crutch or anything. He's walking, and that hip surgery, I think, is now a thing in the rearview mirror for him. So again, looking forward to the spring showcase. And yes, we'll have one more practice Monday that will be kind of a cleanup day, we think, for the coaching staff to kind of recap the spring, go over what went right, what went wrong. And I think it's going to be a fun weekend. Again, I know you want it to be a true game. It will be a showcase, though, I think, of depth and competition. And I think that is a good spot for us to talk about a young man who wants to bring some competition and has high hopes for Florida State in 2023, as well as 24. And that's Lawayne McCoy, the 4-star wide receiver from Miami Central, who took in practice on Thursday, and he was very, very excited to go meet with the Florida State coaches yet again when he committed in front of a very excited Mike Norvell. Fish, this is now 3 4-star receivers in this 2024 class. It's building toward being a really special unit here. What does Lawayne McCoy bring to Florida State?
I'm curious to see where they actually play him. I know they have him listed as a wide receiver, but they have TJ Abrams already committed in Camden Fryer. So I kind of see them as similar pieces. How many slot receivers do you need on your roster? I think FSU is probably looking to sign a bigger receiver. I think that's why the Trader kid, guys like Jeremiah Smith, some of these other guys that are bigger are also on their radar. It's going to come down to numbers. He may slip and end up playing on the defensive side of the ball. You guys have already discussed the Jacobs kid having a great spring. Ja'Kai Douglas is still on the roster. They have a lot of guys that are in this 5'10" to 6 foot range. How many of those guys, I mean, unless they're running the old run and shoot that Houston Cougars ran with David Klinger and Andre Ware, then size doesn't matter. But they do have a lot of these guys that are similar. They have the same kind of traits. If you're going to take a guy this size, you want them to be a 4.3 low 4.4 type of guy. I think he's more of a 4.5 guy. So I think that's why you see some reports that he may play on this in the secondary, be more of a corner safety, and give you some versatility. I know Randy likes to take a lot of guys that used to play receiver, have some size and length, and put them in that secondary. So that may be an option for McCoy.
Good to stack prospects and then figure out when they get on campus what position do they best fit in as far as offensive, defensive scheme. We'll see. But obviously McCoy is very excited to be here. He says Florida State is going to win a national championship because he is going to join them. I like that kind of confidence from a young man. That's really cool to see. And Fish, you also have followed this too, and I think it's a developing storyline for Florida State is 2024 class at safety. Florida State obviously has needs, had a decommitment earlier this week, but the board is fairly loaded from what we've seen, casting a really wide net, but it's a good pool to be fishing in. I would argue. Just let's talk about just a couple of the guys, Fish, that you like, and we will say Fish has got a full story for our Osceola subscribers, just kind of looking at various options in Florida and in the Southeast too. But Fish, who do you like?
You got the Brandon Jacobs kid from Evans High School. He's a kid that gives you some size and length. He's someone that they got on early in the process. He has all the tools to be a very good safety prospect. He's a guy that has the traits that they're looking for at that position. I think there's going to be some other options there that, we've seen as far as, what they got. They got the kid from Georgia. I know I didn't put him on the list. The Rico Jones kid. He's a big, long, athletic kid. So I think he's another option for them in the secondary. So those are a couple guys. Let me just go over the list real quick. I'm going to go over a couple of the kids. Jalen Hayward, a kid out of Rockledge High School. He's a guy that committed early to Georgia. Kirby Smart does a great job of identifying defensive backs. But he's also taken a visit to Miami, so it looks like he's open in the recruiting process. He's someone I like. He's very physical. He's more of one of those guys that you would see in the SEC. He comes up, he plays the run very well, but he also has the ability to play in coverage. Tamari Jackson Johnson, is a kid out of he was actually at this is his third school now. He was at Jackson last year when he came to the camp. Johnson's a big, long, athletic kid, rangy, kind of like a Pat Watkins type safety. He was at the FSU camp last year, so he's an option. Another kid is Xavier Mincy out of Daytona Mainland. I had a chance to watch him in the state title game. He looks like a potential linebacker. So he plays some corner, he plays safety. He gives you another guy with size and length. The one thing you notice with a lot of these guys, they're more bigger physical guys than what they may have had on campus at the safety position. Ryan Mack is a guy that had a great rivals camp. I know he took a visit to Florida State. He's another guy that is versatile enough to play corner and safety. Kai Bates out of Edgewater is a kid that kind of blew up this spring at the Under Armour camp. So those are a lot of options that they have. They have a local kid, Ashton Hampton, whose father coached at Florida State, goes to Florida State University High School, that they've had on campus a few times recently. He's another guy. So they have a lot of options. I don't think I know the fans are a little upset and are concerned about maybe losing Jordan Pride, but they've got at least 10 to 12 guys that they could pull from. And let's be realistic, they're only going to bring in maybe one or two other guys at that position. Plus, they already have CJ Hurd committed. He's from Georgia, and we already talked about the other top-rated safety from Georgia. They're in a good spot. I like when they're recruiting at a position of strength. You take guys, and if they decide to go somewhere else, at least you're playing from a position of strength instead of chasing guys at the end, and then you end up with plan B or plan C guys, and a lot of times those guys don't work out.
Yeah, this feels like a good class still, even with the decommitment. Florida State is addressing needs. Florida State is a winning program coming off a 10-win season. Things are looking up. Whereas, again, things that your rivals in the state, not looking so great, but Florida State, like you're saying, doing a really good job on the recruiting trail. And, of course, a lot of prospects will be on campus this weekend. We'll have, full coverage of the guys who are here on Saturday as they make unofficial visits for the spring showcase. Well, Fish, we appreciate you joining us. Curt and I are going to wrap up with a little bit of hoops and baseball. And, Fish, enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully we have no more rain because it was pretty bad down here for a couple of days. So.
Yeah, tell your friend to kick that gator out of the neighborhood, whatever gator decided to show up and make it a swamp down there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had stuff in their lawns they weren't expecting. So, but you guys have a great day.
Take care, man.
All right, Bob.
All right.
You want the good news or the bad news first? We got to play good news, bad news here.
We're going good news.
We're ending on the bummer. Okay, fine.
Yes. I'm a little bit surprised by this one, but Baba Miller at first announced to ESPN that he is going to return for his sophomore season. That has been confirmed. We are going to talk to him later this afternoon. We have not talked to Baba Miller yet. We've all wanted to talk to him, everybody on the beat, but we're going to get a chance later this afternoon. On a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked are you that Baba is still on the roster for next season?
I mean, if you'd asked me when things were really going south in the season, I would have said like an 8 or a 9 or I would have been up there. It feels like it's been trending this way, though. I mean, the longer he went not saying anything and the more you kind of heard, well, he's still in classes. He's not like doing what a lot of the guys who just they enter college knowing kind of they're going to be a one and done regardless of how the season went. I mean, especially an international guy like this, a guy who may not kind of have the full understanding of college basketball history like Baba, who grew up in Spain. You would think maybe you would have thought, I mean, it was a one and done, especially with how things went. But I mean, he's bought in. I mean, a credit to him to kind of not be scared off by that season like I think a lot of people would. I mean, he like the caption says there, that was his tweet, was run it back. Let's get this fill in the blank right. A quote that I'm sure Leonard Hamilton loved to see on his Twitter account. But
I am sure Leonard Hamilton is giving the smiling death stare at things like this, but this is where
at the same time, if that's what it takes for Baba to come back, you absolutely take that. Because I think we're both really excited to see what Baba, with a full off season, without being thrown into the deep end that was ACC play on a kind of demoralized Florida State team by the time he was on the roster. I mean, Baba playing with a Jalen Gainey, playing off of a Cam Corhan as kind of with a year of experience under his belt. I know Chandler Jackson already responded to the retweet. I think he quote tweeted that with a couple smiley faces. A lot of guys excited about this, and rightfully so, because Bob was a really intriguing prospect. He was a guy who was seen as a potential lotto pick coming into this year for a reason. I think done no favors by the NCAA, but with a year under his belt, I mean, a guy that big who can shoot the three. We didn't see that. I saw it in practice when I was there. Didn't see it translate to the game a ton, but I think it was forcing a bit. And I think a reset will do wonders for him, and I think could easily be a lotto type pick in the 2024 draft. I think it's smarter for him to stick around. I mean, I guess Matthew Cleveland's sticking around in college basketball just somewhere else, but I think he has can boost his draft stock more than Matthew Cleveland with another year in college basketball. If he has the year I think we all think he's capable of.
Yeah, I think Matthew Cleveland's departure is a case where he gets a chance to find new scenery and develop and potentially find a really nice NIL payday somewhere that will get him to the NBA next year. Baba Miller, not going to make any NIL money because he is a Spaniard, student visa, federal issues. This is not an NCAA issue. Baba has been, I think, let's just say it, screwed by the NCAA and screwed by the federal visa issues. It's been a rough start to his coming to America. Let's say that. But the fact that he wants to stay, the fact that he likes being developed, maybe is enjoying life in Tallahassee and sees a future for himself. Maybe he's bought into a vision that Coach Leonard Hamilton has put out as far as, hey, we're going to get, like you said, Cam Fletcher, Jalen Gainey back, 3 transfers. We feel very confident reporting 3 transfers are going to be on campus this weekend, including Josh Nickelberry from LaSalle, potentially Estrada. A couple other guys might be coming down the road. You've got a longer basketball window through May 11th. So if you can believe it, potentially one more month of roster maneuverings and who's coming, who's staying. It's going to be kind of a wild ride for college basketball because you have 20% of guys jumping in the portal. You're going to see just a lot of movement this next month or so. But I think Baba Miller's return might attract a few transfers who say, that's the kind of guy that I might really want to play with because of that athleticism, the way he can, the way he has great hands around the basket, really, really good hands. I think like you, we didn't see that 3-point shooting. We didn't see it consistently in practices or games, but he only played 15 games. He's really baby steps into that development. So a really good sign Friday, Baba Miller announcing he is coming back, and we will have more from him later today as he sits down for his first interview with the Florida State beat writers, and he'll explain some of his reasoning why and perhaps some of the challenges that he faced on and off the court in his first year in Tallahassee. Well, that brings us to the part of the show where we can't find positive baseball topics beyond, hey, Jackson Baumeister's pitched really, really well lately. And he has.
Two competitive losses to Florida where you led and blew leads. I mean, that's probably a positive for where this team's been, but
yeah, I was going to scoot past the Florida debacle, but I think we knew this Wyatt Crowell news was coming. I think again, it was the Thursday game, Florida State Clemson, that Mike Monaco on the ACC network had said that Wyatt Crowell had elbow issues. That was the first time we had heard elbow had been associated with Wyatt. Clearly, he's hearing that from Link Jarrett or Chuck Ristano. He's not just saying it. So once you hear elbow issues, you start to think, is there a potential Tommy John? Is there something that would make Wyatt need to shut it down for the year? And he did announce Thursday night that he had surgery. I don't know where this leaves Florida State. Obviously, you didn't think they were in a great spot. You hoped, maybe prayed that Wyatt was going to come back. Now the road is even tougher as you try to figure out who's your starter and then who gets you to that 9th inning.
Yeah, it felt like, Link Jarrett, the last time we talked to him about Wyatt, I think before the Miami series, he talked pretty candidly about if we get Wyatt back, it will be a while. That in and of itself kind of felt like him acknowledging, thinking that it was quite possible he was done for the year. I don't know. I guess he knew the extent of things then. I mean, I know initially it wasn't thought to be that bad. I know he threw the week after, and things, I guess, snowballed from there. And I mean, Tommy John's kind of become a part of baseball for pitchers. I mean, it's a good thing for Wyatt, who we're assuming, I think it's safe to assume, is done at Florida State, because I mean, his timeline for returning next year would be uncertain, even if he wanted to come back. And I mean, he was a guy who had draft prospects coming into the year as that draft eligible junior. But yeah, it's been a conundrum. I mean, I guess the silver lining for Florida State, if you can find one, is you found, I think, a Friday-Saturday combination who you can at least somewhat rely on. It is not by any means Parker Messick, Bryce Hubbard last year. I mean, the situation they're in is the situation they're in. But Jackson strung together a few nice starts in a row, I think kind of undone by errors at Miami outside of his control. But I mean, a career game from him last week against Clemson in that streak snapping win. And he'll be back out there tonight against NC State. I think it's at 6 p.m. on
Right.
ACC Network Extra. And then Connor Whitaker, I mean, another guy you had to move out of the bullpen, but thankfully his move went better than Wyatt's, who only made it kind of one start. And Connor's is adjusted the role decently well. I think got away from him a little last week, but I mean, he pitched exceptionally well the week before at Miami, really gave them a chance if the offense woke up. I mean, it is a stunning development, I would say. We think we knew the pitcher problems, but it almost feels in some situations now the pitchers are getting let down a little by the lineup. I mean, the lineup has been extendedly cold after a really nice start to the season. It's kind of tough to wrap around. I mean, I'm fascinated to hear kind of how candid like Jarrett will be, probably not until after the season. I'm thinking that wouldn't be a conversation until after the season, but how candid he'll be about all the things that, I mean, losing Wyatt was the worst case scenario, and it was always going to be tough to overcome, but it feels like they could somewhat overcome it if the offense woke up with the two guys they have. Yes, there are questions about, like you said, getting to the ninth inning, but even Ben Barrett, who's had a few nice midweek starts, it feels like you're starting to find a few guys where if your offense could do better than it has been really throughout this entire skid, they would give them a chance to win a few series and maybe, I mean, make the ACC tournament, because that's definitely in question right now.
It's surprising to even try to wrap your head around that last point that you just made. And Florida State's very much in danger. There aren't that many series left. I mean, there's only 3 home series, and one of them is a non-conference series too. So
yeah,
Florida State has to win games on the road. And I think that's a proposition. They have not done that yet. They have not scored 6 runs in a game since March 17th, Boston College, when they went for 19. And you thought that was going to be maybe a spark, maybe something, win that series against a really good BC team. Yeah, we'll see where things go. Again, 3-game series beginning tonight at NC State. It'll be a fun weekend for Florida State fans. If you're in town, again, check out our fan guide. We've got the schedule for what's going on with the circus. The Flying Circus starts up, softball games all 3 days. The Spring Showcase, we'll have recruiting updates. There's a downtown get down in College Town from 5 to 10. Check that out if you're in town too. Softball team, well worth the watch. I know the tickets will be tough to come by, but you can always bring the camping chair like I do and hang out on that left field berm, or check it out from the parking garage. Yeah. There's some. I like that Lonnie Alameda calls it Wrigleyville, because it does kind of feel a little bit like the neighborhood just kind of pours out to come watch the team.
Now we just got to back it up to College Town. Then it's really Wrigleyville.
You know, at some point, maybe there should be a berm down the right field line or something. We need there needs to be a little bit more seating, because the attendance has been pretty impressive these last couple of years, which has been awesome to see, the support for Florida State, which on a roll here. And we think we'll be hosting a regional and likely in line to be hosting a super regional too. So that's going to be great to see as we get through April into May. Well, again, guys, we appreciate you watching Osceola Seminole Sidelines. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, thank you again. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12:30 p.m. If you enjoy watching this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be bringing you more interviews after spring practice with players and coaches and insight from some former players too. We'll be spending some time with a lot of players Sunday night as we honor Billy Sexton, his contributions to the program. A lot of his running backs will be back in town, including a couple surprise guests. And so follow our social media channels. Sunday night we'll be throwing some photos and maybe some quotes and good stories out there from what should be a good event as we honor Billy Sexton, the longtime Florida State running backs coach and booster employee, again, Sunday night. So thanks for Charles Fishbein for joining us, talking a little bit of recruiting and spring football. Curt Weiler, thanks for joining me as always. I'm Bob Ferrante. We'll talk to you this weekend on the Osceola, or we'll see you around campus. Take care. Have a great weekend.